Here's my favorite game controllers of all time. We're gonna start with a weird one first, and that's the Sega Saturn controller. This controller is pretty simple. It has 6 buttons, a D-pad, a start button, and 2 shoulder buttons. What I like about this controller is that everything feels really nice to touch. This is the best D-pad I've ever used. The one thing that's hit or miss on this controller is the shoulder buttons. They chose to go with clicky ones. Some people might not be a fan of this, but it still works. Also, use the Japanese one, not the American one. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Next up is the GameCube controller. This controller gets literally everything right. Kind of. The A button's probably the most genius thing I've ever seen. It's the button you use the most, so they made it the biggest. This is a big brain move. Everything else is in the right place. This controller's just convenient. The D-pad and the C-stick are kinda mid, but oh well. Used my controller for over a decade now, still working. Very swag, Nintendo, 8.75 out of 10. And now for my favorite controller, the Super Famicom controller. Every button on here is literally just god tier. They're easy to press, they're responsive, and I hardly ever fuck up my inputs. I don't know, something about this controller just fits so perfectly in my hands, it's weird. It's just a good controller, and I think they couldn't have made anything better for the system. However, I only have one issue. The Super Nintendo controller has a long wire, while the Super Famicom controller has a short one, but this controller is just more appealing in my opinion. Very epic, Nintendo, 9.5 out of 10. I have one honorable mention. The Dreamcast controller. I only need to say one thing about it, no stick drift. Here's a link about that. Anyways, that's it from me. Thanks.